The first question is, how can one have a satisfying life with a physical condition?
Well, I mean, one of the things is just recognizing that. I mean, even that. I mean, we all have a physical condition. In, in the sense that we're born into bodies that age, get sick, and die. So I mean, that's a physical condition, and and it's not always a comfortable proposition. So that being able to reflect on it, because even the Buddha had to deal with chronic pain, and there's times where the Buddha said that, like, the only time that he feels actually comfortable is when he's in deep meditation, and there's some very sweet discourses where the Buddha has been teaching, and then he passes. He says to Sariputta that could you continue teaching? My back's killing me. And he said that, but the assembly are alert and interested in Dhamma, so could you continue teaching? And then the Buddha goes and lies down on his right side. So it's just also sort of knowing the limitations and ameliorating as best one can in terms of physically and looking after oneself. It was interesting. There was in the talk that I gave this past Saturday night at the monastery here, there was it was about the 10 perceptions, and one of the perceptions is drawbacks and dangers, and it's part of, and it goes through what the Buddha points to is all of the, I mean, this long list of all the things that can be going wrong with your body, and but then, and the different illnesses, and one of the illnesses is like not taking proper care of yourself. So I thought it was really interesting, and because we can exacerbate the physically, but then also there's the Buddha's discourse on the two arrows. In particular, this is more in terms of the mind, in that there's the two arrows, and we're if one is shot by one arrow and one experiences pain and discomfort, that's kind of ordinary. It's like the ordinary a pain and discomfort of having a physical body, and but then the second arrow is the mental pain, the resisting, the proliferating around it, the agitation that comes up because of pain. Then that's the second arrow. The first arrow is ordinary. Second arrow is optional. So we can volunteer for that second arrow if we want, but it's helpful to know that second arrow is one that we can be say not buying into. First arrow, then that has to be dealt with mindfulness and patience and loving kindness and wholesome qualities.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So the next question is a little bit adding to it about illness and death, how to accept illness and death. And I wanted to actually, last time I didn't get a chance. I was so in thinking about others. I lost my opportunity to ask a question. So I wanted to ask you, Ajahn, my son Kurush passed away. It's been
Yeah,
about 3 years now.
yeah.
Yeah, and thank God to the Dharma, to the Buddha, to the Sangha, to the practice. Honestly, I am so grateful. The pain and suffering of it has reduced dramatically. I mean, it's almost to nothing. And then there are these times, like his birthday is coming. October 3rd is his birthday, and I've been with him. He's been with me. I've been with him, and I'm just really contemplating a lot about. I have been since 4 years now about this role of motherhood. This is it's like it's in the DNA to suffer, to have that grief.
Yeah.
It's like I'm done with it. I've made my peace. I'm happy. I'm peaceful. But then the pain comes, and it comes not from my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's in other places in my psyche or my body or my biology or my cells or my blood. I don't know where it is.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that's it's ordinary, but it's also being able to look at because there's always layers of attachment and identification, and quite apropos of that becoming,
Aha.
and you become the mother. Again, I mean, it's not, and and you don't want to, how do you say, just try to push that away or not acknowledge it, but it's like looking at it from a place of compassion, where that is, the conditioning is so deep, and the identification is so strong, and that it's. I mean, it's really interesting. There's a discourse where the Buddha speaks of the different kind of levels of kind of purification of the mind, and there's like, okay, beginning with precepts and sense restraint, and then there's kind of a layer of of understanding and peace that comes from letting go of hindrances to meditations. The mind becomes a bit more settled. Then there's some insight, and then there's even stream entry. But then the Buddha's even, and there's still kind of like, and one of the things that he speaks of in particular is the identification with family. It's very deep, and at family and home place, so that is a it's something that we're born with, we swim with, we identify with it, and it's not like there's a switch that you can just turn it off because you think it's a good idea. It's an ongoing contemplation of the nature of what we identify with as me. and particularly with a child that you carried in your womb, you nursed, that you have all this memory, and of course with Karush, then I mean he had a tragic death, and so that to think there's going to be nothing much there is a bit, even though one has insight and one's dropped a lot of the extraneous suffering, unnecessary suffering, one can still start investigating it in terms of those really, really deep fundamental roots. And because, besides the identification with family, then, there's still deeper layers from that. Just think in terms of letting go of your own identification of you.
Oh. Yes. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I remember one time being with Ajahn Chah, and he had brain surgery, and they had he had a kind of a shunt put into his skull and into between the hemispheres of the brain to take out excess fluid that was constantly building up and impacting his brain and his brain functions. And then he was recuperating, and I was helping out, and I was helping him walk down a set of stairs, and they weren't very long, but there was a bit of a landing about halfway down, and then he stopped, and we were just standing there, and he said, people, something like, people think that that insight into the body is difficult, and to let go of the body. He said, but what's even more difficult is that letting go of the mind itself.
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to contemplate on letting go of me. Contemplate. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I'm going
to
work on it.
Just even that sense of it being something that's worthy of contemplation, is a big deal. Because most people just, and then get on with their lives and.
Oh no! Oh no! No! Thank you, Lumpa. Wow, that's a big thing I'm gonna do, right? Okay, so how can we each be more supportive of or helpful to each other during these tough, difficult times?
Well, I think one is just recognizing the value of living with how much one self appreciates, say, like integrity, in interacting with people, where one feels, okay, I'm interacting in a way that's really trustworthy, or that sense of and generosity, kindness, and really paying attention to how important that feels to oneself, and then, okay, that's what I want to bring to my interactions, and of course one can't demand that of others, but if we take an interest in that, then it's a lovely gift that one can give oneself, really steeping oneself in those aspects of integrity, because that's where, like on one of the chants that we do on a regular basis is, we're the owners of our actions, heirs to our actions, born of our actions, related to our actions, abide, supported by our actions. And it's those actions of body and speech that affect us very, it's what we do affects us. Of course, it also affects others. But we can see that really clearly, that when we are patient or generous or kind with ourselves and then in our interactions, that we feel better, and it feels good. And that's the kind of social contact and social intercourse that one wants to encourage and draw oneself towards, and hopefully spread out into the world.
Yes. Start with yourself. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Sylvia, she says, how do I change the story I tell to myself about COVID, staying home, death? How do I better accept our current situation and the people around us, e.g. husband, kids, and...
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it comes back to those because you can't really, you can't control the story of that other people are telling, and you can't go in and um, um, you have to be extraordinarily careful in terms of how one talks, how one engages. So, but laying that foundation of a sense of kindness and ease and a generosity of spirit and integrity with oneself, and then building that with others, especially those who are close, and also really coming back for oneself and in one's interactions with others, that really recognizing and putting it front and center that people are suffering. Every it's like I had a Q&A session with some people a little while ago, and somebody was asking about kind of anxiety and kind of discomfort, and I said, well, if you're alive during this time and you're not experiencing some kind of anxiety or discomfort, or you're not feeling. So that I think it's recognizing that is this, and people are suffering, and everybody, it's not a comfortable situation or position to be in, but it's also it's not out of the ordinary, in the sense that what is ordinary is say, birth, aging, sickness, death. These are ordinary, and we have them. We can deal with it. Human beings have dealt with it for a long, and we feel that we're the first people who had to deal with it. So it's just sort of putting a bigger context on it all, and then approaching it with a sense of ease and engaging with each other, especially the people who one's closest to, because sometimes that's where we can get most impatient, but to remind oneself of so much of people's storylines or emotions are in reaction to suffering, and that's always worthy of compassion. It's always worthy of being kind and being sensitive to people's reality. It doesn't mean we have to buy into it, but we don't. It's not dismissing it, but it's also we don't have to get caught by it either. But it's important that it's recognized and acknowledged and responded to, with that sense of kindness and compassion.
Thank you.
Or at least patience.
At least patience. I also heard somewhere that you also kind of pointed to that you also have your own self to rely on, to be kind to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always the like in the traditional cultivation and sending forth of loving kindness, compassion. It's always directed to oneself first. It's like you got to have a bit of money in the bank account before you can
Give it away.
go out and see if you can give it away or spend it too much.
Right. Thank you. So Sarit says, how to help a person when there is guilt present for many years. So
what was that again?
She says, how to help a person when there is guilt present for many years. I don't know if this is guilt in in the person asking question or the person they're helping.
Right. Well, I think one of the
in the presence of guilt.
It's in the I don't hear you very well. It's in helping people with guilt. Like when a person come with lots of guilt about things that happened like 30 years ago, and it's hard for them to let go, and they're punishing themselves still. How can we look at this, like into this guilt?
Okay.
Thank you.
I think I think one of the things is to recognize that guilt is something that we do, and we tend to do fairly say a Western culture is very much steeped in a kind of a guilt relationship to themselves and to the world, and but also recognizing that it's cultural as opposed to intrinsic to our nature. And I can relate a story that happened to me, and it's always stuck in my mind because it happened many years ago. I was teaching in New Zealand and visiting a new branch monastery there in our tradition, and we had say evening chanting, meditation. He gave a Dhamma reflection, and then it was opened up for questions. And then actually it was the very first question was about guilt and how to deal with guilt, how to work with guilt. And then I, as a translator, of course, I went to translate the question to the monk, and then I burst out laughing because I didn't know the word for guilt in the Thai language. And so then, because I'd never come across it in the same way. And so then I had to explain to this senior Thai teacher what a Westerner does to make themselves feel guilty. And then I went through it, and you could see this very concerned look on his face. And he said, oh, tell them that that's suffering. Tell them not to do that. And of course, for him hearing it from the outside, it was such a almost like an aberration. Why would you do that to yourself? But of course, for us, it's very much a part of our worldview and our view of self. So I think a lot of it comes back to actually these fundamental qualities. I think one of the things that's really important is a firm foundation in like moral precepts, in integrity, in virtue, and again, one has to relate that not from our that it's a commandment from some deity, or that there's some kind of punishment hovering over one, but that one has an integrity of conduct and speech and interactions with the world, and in a way that is there's a happiness that comes from knowing that one has lived it with integrity and in a harmless way, and to that returning to that sense of harmlessness, and not, because sometimes, even though if you think clearly, so no, I don't want to harm anybody. I don't have any deep-seated ill will to make people miserable, but it's oftentimes not acknowledged. And to be able to acknowledge that. And then another aspect is gratitude. Just learning how to pay attention to the things that one can be grateful for, because we really aren't. There's nothing that we came into this world with nothing. We leave with nothing, and to be able to recognize various things that we have, both physically and the people in our life and the situations, and finding the aspects that are really worthy of gratitude, because that's another uplifting quality to the mind that undermines that because guilt is so much around a self-perception of oneself being flawed and having a flawed relationship with the world around and other people in our life.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. So Dory says, how do I understand my inability to make plans and carry them out? Don't make it.
Trial and error. You have to pay attention to what it is, and some things work and some things don't, and you can't. And also, I think one of the things we oftentimes are hesitant to commit to something, commit to some plan, because we're afraid of failure, and that we won't do it right, we'll fail in some way, and I can just assure you that you're going to fail anyway. but that's in the sense that I've spent 46, 47 years of my life as a monk, failing consistently. But it's the commitment to learning from it. That's where one gains the confidence, or one gains the perspective. So that willingness to try something out, to okay, make a plan. Oftentimes we idealize what we think we should do, and as soon as we idealize it, I mean, this ties into that whole becoming. We idealize what we think we're going to do and what we think we're going to be because of it, and then but it's an idealized version of what we think it should be, and it's bound up with projection and desire, and of course, because it's in our mind, it keeps shifting, and so it's important to. It's always say real success is always just out of our reach. So it's that sense of being able to really okay, but this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to be doing. Will it work? Will it not? Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. But not to be able to be weighing in the aspects, and that's also where the Buddha takes there's a set of 4 pairs which are called the worldly winds, or worldly dhammas, worldly qualities: praise and blame, gain and loss, fame and disrepute, or acknowledgement and disrepute, happiness and suffering. And we keep trying to get away from say blame or criticism, or some loss, and from the things which are on a negative side. We want to get to the positive, but it's much more. Those things are always going to change. Even the Buddha was criticized. I mean, it's if the Buddha can go through 45 years of establishing a world religion and still get criticized, then there's not much hope for us. So but it's that sense of one isn't taking that as the measurement. One's taking the measurement of what am I doing? That which I am engaging in, do I have a wholesome, skillful intention? Does it have wholesome, skillful results? And then so we're learning from it through that. So then, even if one is praised, there's some major gain, there's some success, you still learn from it. Same with, failure and criticism and some experience of suffering. We keep learning from it. And that's the most important thing. Not that we can somehow stabilize it into a perpetual experience of unlimited well-being and ease.
Yes, not carrying out the plans.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, that's what's it? Yeah. Man makes plans and God laughs.
Okay. So Bonnie says, how to settle my mind into meditation when I have a very active monkey mind. Actually, Ajahn, I have another question related to that. I'll give them to you both together. I believe Laura had sent me a question about how important is investigation in meditation. So maybe they're linked together.
Yeah. Well, certainly, investigation is really important, but it's also, you have to pay attention to what the result of it is, because we can start investigating. We have to use thought to do that, but it can start spinning us out, or we can start proliferating, or get caught up in trains of thought that really pull us into agitation, restlessness. So a lot of it is bringing the meditation back into the body, and grounding oneself in the experience of the body, the experience of the breath, letting a certain ease and because a soothing rhythm of the breath is really helpful in settling the mind. Because oftentimes we go in and try to fix the mind, and of course it's like Ajahn says, it's like you don't, your mind is like a tiger. So what you want to do, you don't want to go and wrestle with that tiger. But what you want to do is set up a good solid cage that you can have it contained, and then you can watch it and learn from it. So similarly with the mind, it's like that. You don't want to be jumping in and fighting with the mind, or struggling to make it peaceful, or even struggling to make it mindful, because that's coming from an idea. So then stepping back into the mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the rhythm of the breath, bringing that attention in, and that's something very soothing and settling, and allowing oneself to build a momentum of mindfulness and attention, and then the mind will start to settle, and so that's you have that. You've got the body as a really helpful anchor. You've got the kind of experience of the body, where you can feel where you're feeling kind of restless, feeling kind of tight, feeling kind of contracted, and then using the breath and that mindfulness of the body to settle, to expand, to brighten. Also, that question of like investigation and contemplation, those are it's really helpful to use the different objects of contemplation or investigation and sometimes you'll use that in order to, say, brighten or stimulate the mind. Sometimes you use it to settle the mind. Sometimes you'll start to use contemplation, and yeah, the mind starts to proliferate, and so then you need to come back to something that is a bit more basic, just like the rhythm of the breath. It's very settling. So it's just working. It's like there's a set of teachings that the Buddha gave, and the 7 factors of awakening. And the first one is mindfulness, and then the next one is investigation of experience. Next one is energy, effort. Next one is joy, or and those are considered kind of like active qualities. And then the last three are more settled qualities or settling qualities. Tranquility, the samadhi, or the settled stilling of the mind, and the last one of equanimity or equipoise within the mind. And then the Buddha says, you know, sometimes it's not a linear. It's a mindfulness you need all the time, but those qualities of mind, or those factors of mind, you're not sort of developing it necessarily in a linear fashion, but looking at what's helpful for balancing what you're experiencing right now. Because sometimes it's helpful to, you know, bring up an investigation, bring up a contemplation of some theme, and yeah, there's been, I think there's been several talks that I've given over the last couple of months that have really focused on like recollecting themes of contemplation, recollecting themes of investigation, and because it's helpful for presenting the mind with reminders of the nature of truth, and giving one without that, because it isn't as if we sit down, watch the breath for a little bit, make the mind peaceful, and then all of a sudden the lights of enlightenment all sort of come on. It's a process that you have to be working with, experimenting with, engaging with, and you learn from it. It's a learning process.
Thank you, Ajahn. So there is one from Sylvia. I think she's talking about that becoming. How do I stop it? How to better deal, stop, catch our thoughts from becoming feelings / sensations in your body and acting, going down the rabbit hole. Where do we catch it?
Yeah. Well, I think again, it's just paying attention to suffering. That usually gets our attention. Yeah. And because we don't want to suffer, so starting to investigate at that point. Oh, what happened there? How did I end up back here in this place of suffering and discontent or dissatisfaction or dis-ease? It doesn't have to be some dramatic suffering, but just the reality of oh, this is uncomfortable. This isn't so wonderful. Yeah, how did I end up back here again? So picking it up as an investigation, and that recognize, starting to, because you've got a template for investigating it, in that sense, in that dependent origination teaching. Okay, there's feeling, then there's the desire, different kinds of desire, and attachment, becoming, is kind of a progression that keeps popping up, you know, over and over again in our minds, and sort of learning how to pay attention to it and recognize, oh yeah, that's how it works, or how does it work, as a question, as opposed to just trying to line it up to make it all fit. But using that experience of discontent, dissatisfaction, how do we get there? The other aspect is experimenting with, like in the little booklet, stopping is yes. I actually I reread it. Not bad.
We love it, Ajahn.
And but I was as I was reading it again, I'm thinking, well, with stopping, that is such an emphatic verb in our language, and is using it as a because there is suffering, but there's also the cessation of suffering. There's becoming, and there's an ending of becoming. So it's like seeing these things as as pairs, and then that sense of stopping is not sort of like an abrupt forcing to stop, but more like attending to, oh, I don't have to feed this. I don't have to, I'm actually choosing to engage in this. Also, another aspect of so, because one of the words, like with the word for, say, that in the Four Noble Truths, there's dukkha or suffering, or however, there's way better translations, but stress, cause of stress, the ending of stress or ending of suffering, ending of dukkha, cessation of dukkha. But that word is also, it can be just as valid to translate it as non-arising. That changes our relationship with it. So that rather than me going out having to stop desire, stop becoming, making it cease, attending to it so that there is a non-arising of desire, a non-arising of attachment, non-arising of identification, as opposed to me having to, say, annihilate or to make this stop, a thing that's already there, making it stop. It's more, I think it's much more skillful to pay attention. Oh, it's through that stopping or that not attending to a non-arising that there's space opens up, and then we experience it in a completely different way.
So Randy says, I like his teachings on having to be right. Maybe he could expand.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think that just recognize, because oftentimes we don't even acknowledge that as a possibility. And, we're so invested in, in being right, in being successful, in being, because who's going to, I mean, it's counterintuitive, because, I mean, why would you invest in being wrong and a failure? I mean, so it is, but it's just more stepping back and seeing that, oh, once I buy into one side of the coin, I got the other side along with it. And so then the possibilities really open up, so that sense of being able to, okay, and it's not as if we willfully go around, saying, yeah, trying to be wrong or not being interested in being right, but it's more like, oh, when we invest in that and worry about it, then we suffer. And so it's coming back to that, the experience of suffering and the ending of suffering. So that's, but usually our measuring stick is, yeah, praise and blame, gain and loss, success and failure, some sort of status or some kind of lack of some disrepute, happiness and suffering. Those are pairs that we, as long as we're invested in one side of the coin, we get the other one along with it. It's just part of nature. So then that's where that cultivation of mindfulness and discernment. One of and it's a word that, like, when I first went to live in Thailand with Ajahn Chah and listening to talks, and there's a word that I hear over and over again. It's a sati panya, and so it's like sati is mindfulness, panya as wisdom. So it's, yeah, mindfulness and wisdom, and that learning how to both cultivate it, but also how to apply it. One of our teachers in our Ajahn Munindo, he translates, I think, very beautifully in that it's a truth discerning awareness. And that quality of how do we apply truth discerning awareness to something that is, yeah, whether it's successful or it's a failure, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, whether it's where people accept it or reject it. How do we apply that truth discerning awareness to all aspects of experience? And that's where the possibility of a freedom of heart comes.
So it's a kind of awareness that is discerning truth. Is that what it is? English is my second language, Ajahn. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So there is one more question, but I thought before we get to that and end, we're gonna have a retreat with Ajahn on the 25th of October, where he will be leading us half of the day, which is gonna be amazing. Okay, October 25th is a Sunday, where I'm gonna open
Put
the
it in the
retreat
calendar.
at 10. I'll be opening the retreat at 10 to 1. 1 o'clock people go to lunch, and then 2 to 5:30 you have.
Yeah. I put it in my calendar.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I was like a deer in the headlights. So.
Oh, thank you, Lumpa. And Lumpa, we have a very beautiful soul, Marge Driscoll. She's here. But emphasizing on the fact that people need to go on retreats. People need to go on retreats, long retreats. How are they going to learn all these things, Manijeh? You're teaching them, but they need to go on a retreat. And so what can I do, Lumpa, if they don't go on a retreat? If there are not enough retreats around for people to go to, or frequent enough, or inexpensive enough, or
Yeah.
we're doing our
Yeah, no,
best.
that is definitely one of the problems in terms of how accessible they are, both in terms of physically, but then also monetarily, because many retreats are and some retreat centers are, it's a big investment. That's it. But I think one of the things is I think that's I think that's one of the things that the pandemic is helping with. That there are beginning to be retreats that are being held online, so it becomes much more accessible. And we'll be doing the Thanksgiving retreat this year. Yeah, 10-day retreat. I'm not sure when all the details will be posted, but I think there is a bit of an announcement, so people can, on our website, so that people can start getting their mind around it. So that is something. Um, Opportunities to do retreat are really helpful, really necessary. It's a very supportive to be able to focus, but it's also, people have to feel comfortable or ready to take that on as well. So it does make a certain or require a certain commitment for oneself, and to step into the unknown a bit, and to and see it as giving oneself a gift. Oftentimes retreat turns into this big thing in the mind where one is it's kind of unknown. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Am I going to survive this? And then one can invest a whole lot of anxiety into it, and then not quite commit to it. So, but seeing it much more as a gift that one is giving oneself, stepping back from the various entanglements and responsibilities and duties that one has in the world, and stepping back a bit. And of course, for many people, then it might not be so realistic in terms of family commitments, of family members, children, all that might be, but that, I think, just starting to turn attention to giving oneself a bit of time in a say, like taking a period of a weekend, and just giving a bit more time to meditation, or to just being quiet, stepping back a bit, and then adding to that, getting a bit more experience of what it feels like to step back. And similar with that, what does it feel like with that stopping and experimenting? But what's it feel like to just stop, to not feed the mind that is either worrying or is excited or is planning whatever? Oh, can I just stop that? Not in the sense of forcing it to stop, but can I just, by bringing attention to it and shining a light on it, it settles right there. It might be just briefly, but pay attention to how that feels, and then start returning to that place of stopping, or of settling, or of quiet, of a sense of ease and clarity, because that you build on the little bits to rather than, because sometimes people come through it with again, through idealism, and go out and sign up for a 10-day retreat, and without really having much experience, and it's not always a rousing success.
Yes. I'm gonna unpin you, Ajahn, so you can see others if you have a chance. I know you have to get off. Yeah.
Top one. Yeah. No, I was just for some reason the lights went off, so yeah.
Okay, yes. So I hope, I don't know if you can see others. I unpinned your screen so you can maybe see others. But thank you, Ajahn, for giving us your tea time. I hope you had a chance to drink Drink your tea.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah, yeah,
generous
yeah. There
of
we
you.
go. Okay, now I can
Yes.
see people.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And so I'm going to actually look into that Thanksgiving, and maybe, you know, my home is kind of like a retreat center, a mini.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'll invite a few people to come, and together we can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really helpful to have that support of where you're sharing that opportunity or that practice time. That's one of the big say benefits of retreat. Going on a formal retreat is just having others that are there, and having the examples of others who are practicing, and putting forth some effort in their endeavors of meditation and practice.
Yes. And last time I forgot to say, but if anybody is interested, at 7 o'clock there is puja, Ajahn, live puja. Yes, so
There is
there's live
evening.
meditation on YouTube.
Yeah, we do a bit of chanting at first, and then we sit meditation, and we wrap up at 8 o'clock. So we start at 7 and wrap it up at 8.
Oh, it's very lovely. Yes. So I will send a link to all of you if you want to go on it. Thank you, Lumpa. May you be safe and healthy and happy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Yeah, look after yourselves. Keep safe. Keep healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.